right, so now comes the part where we go through the major bones involved in movement in the body. You know that there are 206 bones now, hopefully. I do not require you to remember all 206 of them. In fact, we will give you some worksheets in class that have a skeleton, and a lot of the bones on that skeleton are not really major ones involved in movement either. So we're going to try and condense it down to what you really need to know, and obviously to fill out the worksheets in class based off the skeleton itself. I think the best way to do this is we'll work from head to toe, okay? Do your best, once again, to draw some pictures in your book. I will be doing my best to draw some pictures, but I'll also put up a nice picture for you as well. Holy, I am amazing at drawing. Anyway, so starting from top to bottom, I'll probably put a better picture here. I'll try and stand in the middle. Top to bottom, right? We have our skull. Okay, this thing here is a skull, the whole thing. The two major parts of the skull, we have the cranium, so that's like the top flat bone that protects the brain. And then we have this bone which joins in here. It's called a mandible. You know it as a jaw, all right? So skull, cranium, mandible. Then we're getting down to our shoulder girdle, okay? So shoulder girdle are the bones here, and then we get into our arm itself, all right? So the shoulder girdle comprises of two bones. We have our scapula, which is the wingy type bone that you can sort of feel like, if you do this, that thing that points out there, that's a scapula, all right? And then this bone across the front here, which links into your sternum, is your clavicle, okay? So those two bones together make up the shoulder girdle, and you have them on both sides. And then looking at the bones of the arm, the bone of the upper arm is the humerus, okay? Called the humerus because the end of the humerus is your elbow, which is at the back there. So anatomical position, all right? Elbow is at the back, and if you bang it, that's your funny bone, right? Haha, so funny. Anyway, humerus, in case you never got that reference. Then when we're standing in anatomical position, if we know our elbow's at the bottom, okay, linking off the elbow at the bottom of our arm is our ulna. This is how I want you to remember it, okay? Well, there are two ways to remember it, but this is number one. I always think easier to remember that my elbow connects into my ulna. So it's at the bottom. It's the bottom of the picture. And then there's a bone up here, which is your radius. The other way which people like to remember it is that your radial nerve runs down along here to your thumb, okay? So either way you remember it, I don't care. Just don't get them mixed up and go back to front. So radius, radial nerve, thumb, ulna connects at the back here, okay? Then you've got your three sets of bones in the hands, being in the carpals in the wrist, the metacarpals, which are here, and then your phalanges are these very small long bones that make up your fingers. You also have phalanges in your toes as well, all right? So that is this part of the body. I'll now do the midline and then we'll do the leg. All right, continuing on with the midline of the body from the front now, we've got, first of all, from the back, it doesn't really matter, the vertebrae column, okay? Very important collection of bones which basically enable any sort of twisting, rotating, bending, all of the movement, but also offers protection for our spinal cord, because we know if those sets of nerves gets severed or damaged, it can have lasting impacts on the body and its inability to move. So vertebral column, we have 5 sections of the vertebral column from top to bottom. We've got cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal. Generally, when we're talking about sacral and coccygeal, you don't really need to remember that there is a collection of 5 and 4 bones. You just need to sort of remember that it's the sacrum and the coccyx at the bottom, okay? You can get away with that. But the other 3 you definitely need to know. Cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. It's important to note that these numbers represent how many vertebrae are in each section, and the thoracic section being the largest. Then if we're looking at the front of the body, we then have 2 very important bones. We've got our sternum, which goes right through here, okay? Major flat bone to protect the heart. And the rib cage, okay, which then goes around from the vertebrae column into the sternum. And if you remember from the previous one, we did how I did the clavicle sort of would insert sort of here, like that. Okay, and then your scapula sort of be here at the back, and then you're going to start your humerus here, etc., etc. Okay, so that's that, and then we've just got our pelvic or hip girdle and leg to go. All right, yep, I'm happy with that. Okay, let's do this. So, last set of major bones involved in movement. First of all, we've got our pelvic girdle or our hips, okay? The pelvic girdle is basically a whole bunch of bones that have been fused together, and yes, they all have names like the iliac crest, etc. But if you can just know them as the pelvic girdle or the hips or the hip bone or anything like that will be acceptable, okay? And it looks like this Batman mask, you know, for your legs to go in. And then we've got the leg itself. So top bone is the largest bone in your body. You may know that already, your femur, okay? It is very thick and strong. And then so these two bones, the femur and the tibia actually do connect together in your knee joint. But over the top of that knee joint is your patella, okay? So I've sort of just separated it for the picture purposes, but do know that there isn't a gap there. And if you do have a gap there, go to hospital. So we've got the patella, then we've got two bones, much like the arm. How you've got two bones, you know, radius, ulna. You've got two bones in the lower leg of your body, your tibia and your fibula, okay? So how do we remember these? Tibia is the front, it's your shin bone, okay? It's the big, flat, strong one here, okay? It's the one that used to get kicked in when you're in year 3 and used to make fun of girls. I think her name was Rebecca, and she had those like shiny black shoes and she'd be like, I hate you, Caruana. Anyway, so that's your tibia. At the back of that, behind it for support and structure, you have another thin little bone called fibula, okay? I like to remember the two because your tibia is nice and big and strong and your fibula is like this little support bone. And sometimes we tell little fibs. Fibula, anyway, whatever, tough crowd. Then we get to the bottom of the foot, much like what's going on in your wrist, but instead of carpals, you've got tarsals, and you can remember the difference between tarsals and carpals because toes, okay, it's near there, all right? So tarsals are your ankle here, okay, tarsals, and then we've got metatarsals, which are here in your foot, and your phalanges again, which are your toes themselves. So they are our major bones involved in movement. So I'm going to stop that there, and then next video we're going to look at joints. A joint being where two or more bones meet and create movement. So yeah, thanks, bye.